Hello and welcome to Money, Me and COVID-19, where we meet with leaders from the world of business, finance, investing and politics to find out what's really going on during this pandemic and how we can best position ourselves to survive in the short term and hopefully to thrive as we come out the other end. My guest today was born in the USA, educated at the London School of Economics, and then she had a chance encounter while still at university that led to her first business opportunity. She's run a PR agency, she's run technology companies and digital companies. She's also run a £100 million investment vehicle. She's the best-selling author of 4 books, including Stop Talking, Start Doing, Do Less, Get More, and most recently, How to Fix Your Shit. She was awarded the MBE in 2015 for her services to business and entrepreneurship. The Times has recognized her as one of the UK's top 20 most influential entrepreneurs, and the Institute of Directors described her as one of the most influential women in the UK. 5 years ago, she quit her job as CEO of her own business to help other people start and grow their own enterprises. Her name is Shaa Wasmund. Shaa, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. I am very excited to be here.
Brilliant. Well, we all know that one of the key successes for entrepreneurs is being in the right place at the right time. So tell us about the circumstances that led you into the rather male-dominated world of professional boxing.
Well, it is true that being in the right place at the right time makes a massive difference to your opportunities. But equally, I think that sometimes a big part of that is actually down to you creating that luck and creating that opportunity. So in my case, it was that I had applied for a competition at Cosmopolitan magazine when I had started my first year at LSE. I won the competition, which meant that I was able to contribute and be a writer throughout my duration at LSE. And I used this as an opportunity to garner an interview with the then super middleweight champion, Chris Eubank, despite the fact that the magazine hadn't actually commissioned me whatsoever. I told a little white lie and got Chris to agree to the interview, and then I kind of had to work my way backwards from that. So yes, massive opportunity, but I'd equally say I've always been one of those people who, if I can't find an opportunity, I will look at how I can go and create one.
Okay, and where did that lead to, that chance encounter? Obviously you used the experience with him in the interview, but I think it actually led to your first business opportunity, didn't it?
Well, it was. He actually offered me a job on the spot. It's a very long story, but let's just put it in a short, succinct version, which is that he didn't get on with another journalist who came, and he asked me what I thought he should have done, thinking that I was an actual journalist. And then I had to kind of fess up and say, well, actually, I only write for Cosmo part-time because I'm actually studying economics at LSE. And if you know anything about Chris, that kind of piqued his interest because he likes things that aren't quite, the normal. And I told him what I would have done. And he just said, great, would you like a job? And I said, yes. And I had no idea what I was saying yes to. And neither did I realize that I was saying yes to a full-time job while studying economics at LSE. I mean, it was a bit of a handful to say the least, but without question, one of, if not the best business experience of my life.
Okay, and then continuing this theme of meeting high-profile people, you then got the chance to work with Sir James Dyson.
I did indeed, and that was again another chance meeting. And working with James from around his kitchen table when nobody knew who he was very much like doing an MBA at Harvard, except I got paid. So it was the best of everything, really. Phenomenal man. He actually wrote the foreword to my first book, Stop Talking, Start Doing. I feel so eternally grateful for so many reasons that I got the opportunity to not just to work with him, but to work with him at that point when the business was in its infancy, and I got to work directly with James. Whereas I think, if you came into the business now, you'd be very hard pushed to get anywhere close to working directly with James. Whereas, I literally only worked directly with James, and what an incredible opportunity. What an amazing man on so many levels. I'm very grateful.
Okay, and what was the kind of, at that stage in his career, what was the main role that you were able to play? Was it
building the brand. That's what he brought me on for, to build. He loved the fact that I'd been in boxing. James was never one to be, conformist or traditional. And he wanted to take on the big guys of Hoover and Electrolux and Miele, and he wanted somebody who wasn't afraid of a fight, and he wanted somebody who would not look at him and think that he was a vacuum cleaner manufacturer, because he's so much more than that and always has been. So for me, I didn't have any of that because I was too young, if I'm being honest, to have the experience of being able to put him into a box. Oh, this is who he is and this is what he does. So yeah, it was very much, how do we build the brand when we have at that point, no money for TV advertising? So yeah, it was an incredible story.
Okay, and then of course, I guess, along came things like the internet and the digital world, and you kind of more pivoted your career towards a series of online type businesses and technology businesses.
Yeah, very much so. James, as much as I loved working with James, I still didn't have any equity in that business, and I wanted to create something that was mine. And he fully understood that, fully supported that. And I think the convergence of that period of time, plus the internet and all of those things, it just spoke to, I think, my warrior spirit. And I was like, yes, this is the new frontier. I'm going to go and conquer it. I mean, I'm not saying I went and conquered the internet by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe I conquered my little tiny small corner of it.
And when you look back on that phase of your career, what would you say were the highlights and the key learnings that you had?
Oh, I was literally unstoppable. Like, one idea worked great, next one didn't work, learned my lessons next. Like, nothing fazed me. It was a period of time when, literally you could raise money for some crazy nonsense idea on the back of a napkin created, in Starbucks, or I'm not even sure there was Starbucks then, but it was an incredible period of time to be an entrepreneur, because even if it wasn't your ideas that were getting funded, your friends' ideas were getting funded, there was just such a sense of possibility and opportunity. And I don't know. I think that was a massive turning point in the UK economy. And I think, historically, if we look back, I haven't done this, so I could be wrong, but I think what you'll see is a massive spike in entrepreneurship from that point onwards. The reason being is the level, the playing field was suddenly leveled to a big degree. It didn't matter if you grew up on a council estate like I did. You could have a great idea and somebody would fund you. It didn't matter if you didn't belong to the old boys network, because I certainly didn't, but that you'd be welcomed into the investment houses. It was the appetite for wanting to support entrepreneurs, new businesses, was voracious. And it was very much of we know that things are going to fail, and we're okay with that. We're going to encourage things to fail, because that's not where our focus is. Our focus is, if we can pick 1, 2, 3 out of 10, 20, 100 ideas that's going to skyrocket, then those people who failed the first time around, they might be winners the second time around, or maybe the third or the fourth or the fifth. This ecosystem this is, if you want to know my very short answer to how we get out of COVID, we need to go back to those times. If you want to really reboot this economy, we need to be investing into entrepreneurship. We need to be investing into technology. We need to be investing into online businesses with the knowledge, like they did back then, that so many of these ideas are going to fail. But the people who fail at those ideas typically come back and succeed at the next idea or the one after that. I have such brilliant memories of that period of time.
Yeah, and it's, as you say, it brings us into the whole subject of today and where we are with today's economy, these unprecedented events, as we keep hearing. But it feels to me like we could do a little bit more entrepreneurial leadership in the government. I mean, what's your take on how they've actually responded to COVID and the impact it's having on the economy and on business?
Wow. Where do you get me started? So I will lay my cards on the table. I'm not a Conservative voter. I have been a Labour voter my whole entire life, primarily because, I grew up on the welfare state, and the welfare state took care of me when my mum didn't have the resources to do so. So I'm in the camp that says, you know what, if I need to make more money to pay more taxes to take care of the people who can't take care of themselves, then I will very graciously accept that responsibility and deal with it. So I'm not a natural fan of the Conservative government. That said, I have to be very honest. I don't know anyone who'd want to take on that mantle during this period of time. And I think it's very easy to criticize with hindsight and without having the responsibility. Do I think they could have done things differently? Oh my gosh, of course. I mean, some of the things just make no logical sense whatsoever. So you can't sit with groups of more than 6 from a household, but you can get on a plane with 280 other strangers in close proximity and share the very same air that everybody's breathing in and out for a 12, 14, 16-hour flight. So this is where the government falls down. Where is the logic behind? If you can't do one thing, then surely you can't do the other thing. That's where it goes wrong, right? I mean, there are so many examples. If at the beginning we're shown videos that wearing fabric masks will not help anyone whatsoever because they are breathable, and therefore the germs and, you know, the virus can escape through the fabric, well, then why are we all suddenly told that we've got to wear them? I don't know. I'm sure I'm not the first person to have told you this, but I am not a conspiracy theorist. And yet there is something that just doesn't sit true with me right now.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've been, highlighting for 6 months now, which really worries me, is no matter where you are on the political spectrum, I'm quite concerned about the way in which we have this kind of government by edict at the moment, which is quite close to totalitarianism. And I'm not sure there's much difference now between living in Britain and living in China. You know?
Yeah, I think it's very worrying, and I think that people are going to be scared into potentially having a vaccine that potentially really hasn't been tested. And I will categorically not be having a vaccine. I'm not saying that other people shouldn't. I'm not dictatorial like that. But for me, I think I agree with you. I think that we seem to have lost an awful lot of our rights over the last 6 months of personal responsibility as well. And again, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that, you know, the schools go back, everything spikes. What are we going to do? Are we back in a lockdown like everybody's thinking, you know, come October half term? It seems very likely to me. But how do we get out of this? This is my question. We're in it, but how do we get out of it? Like, what actually has to happen to get us out of it? Do we have to have a 6-month lockdown where nobody does anything? And if so, how do we cope with that in the economy? Because one of the things that I struggle with is the general populace doesn't really understand quantitative easing, and there's no particular reason why they should, because it's not, you know, taught in the everyday curriculum. It's not something that we, you know, most people talk about. I certainly wouldn't talk about it at, you know, with my friends out to dinner. But quantitative easing actually has to be paid back. Like, you know, that money that they're printing off right now, like at some point, this has to go back. So where's it coming back from? That's what I question.
Well, yeah, and I think back to your earlier point about entrepreneurship, to me, the only way out of this is going to be a huge increase in business activity and wealth creation, from which taxes and so on can then be levied that will cover the scale of debt. But I'm not seeing enough of that. I mean, I'm hearing that Rishi Sunak's talking about potentially increasing corporation tax, which for me, in a post-COVID, post-Brexit Britain, is one of the worst things we could do. So,
I think if they increase corporation tax, they will not win the next election, regardless of my own political views. They will lose their own voters, because people, that is the worst idea possible, like literally the worst idea possible.
Now, I suppose the other side of this, to try and make a positive out of it, is I think a lot of people have used lockdown as a period of reflection, and also perhaps you know, they're in danger through furlough ending and so on, perhaps losing their jobs and thinking maybe now's the time for me to consider starting my own business. You know, what would your advice be to anyone that's thinking those kind of thoughts at the moment?
Well, come and tell me about it. Like, this is my jam. This is my reason for waking up every morning, is to really empower people to understand that this is your life. You have one life. And if you want to go and start your own business, now is a bloody good time to go and do it, because thinking that you have the safety and security of a job, you know, I just think that's completely gone out the window. And what I'm seeing, because, you know, in my world, it's very much about teaching people how to build online businesses. And there has never been a better time to create an online business. No matter what your speciality is, no matter what your sector is, you can find a way to create an online business around that. And for me, what it's really about is it's about financial empowerment, because when you are financially empowered, you have the reserves to ride out any shortcomings or hiccups in the economy or pandemics or anything that's thrown at you. I want to create a world where we have social mobility for all, not just for a few.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I know from some of the research I've done on you and your books and so on, that you say that nothing great happens inside your comfort zone, and that really it's all about being willing to step outside of that comfort zone if you want to achieve what you're capable of in life. Can you just expand a bit more on your thoughts around that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we're all guilty of this. I'm still guilty of it. I still, you know, we hit plateaus in our careers, we hit plateaus in our business. And when we hit those plateaus, it's not because we're not capable of breaking through to the next level, but it's because we've got to a place where we feel comfortable. This feels comfortable to me. And if you're okay with that, there's nothing wrong with it, right? If you're okay with where you're at and you're happy with that, that's great. Again, I don't think any of us should be dictating what people should do or how much they should earn or how ambitious they should be or how many hours they should want to work. But what I do really encourage is to be honest with yourself. If you've hit a plateau, are you really happy with, is this it? Is this all there is? And if for you it is, then you're in an amazing place, because most people never get there. But if you think to yourself, actually, no, I'm not done yet, there's more for me, that's when you've got to step out of your comfort zone. Because I know it sounds like a throwaway line and it sounds like a cliche, but truthfully, what got you here won't get you there. You have to do different things. You know, it's like when you watch, I liken it to Mario Kart. It's like, you know, new level, new devil, right? You've just, you go up a different level and now you've got different challenges, and you've got to keep on doing that if you want to progress. And like I said, not everyone does. But I know for sure that when I'm in my comfort zone, that's when I'm kind of just, you know, I'm drifting on by and I'm happy, just, you know, doing what I'm doing, and it all feels easy. And then something will hit me where like, oh, come on, Shaa, you know, there's more than this. What's next? Come on, up your game. What are we going to do next? And that's when you've got to say, all right, well, in order to do that, I have to not just step, but I probably have to jump out my comfort zone into the next level.
That's interesting, because the title of some of your books clearly gives away some of your thoughts, like, you know, stop talking, start doing, how to fix your shit. I mean, do you think we're a bunch of procrastinators who just need a kick up the bum?
Pretty much, yes. on all levels, for all people, at all pay grades, including myself. Procrastination sees no gender, no race, no age. It just afflicts all of us, right? All of us. I procrastinate on stuff. I'm sure you do. We all do. Even big action takers procrastinate on stuff. And typically we procrastinate on the stuff that is the most important.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously you now help a load of different business owners, particularly women. Are there particular issues you see women facing in business that perhaps you don't see so much being faced by men?
Yeah, there is still a pay gap. Make no mistake about it. I think that we would all love to think that in 2020 that wasn't the case, but it is the case. And women are still, to this day, marginalized in some areas, discriminated against in some areas, made a lot of prejudgments in many areas. And I think for women, it is the most important thing is for a woman to have the courage and the confidence to show up as herself, just to really be able to be herself. And I'm sure that this affects some men as well, but I haven't seen it as much. Women tend to spend a lot of their careers trying to fit into what they think other people want them to be. So whether it's in a corporate career, to dress a certain way, to act a certain way, to fit into the look of the corporate world. If it's in an entrepreneurial world, what do their clients want? What can they show up about? So I'll give you an example. And again, why for me it's so important to be financially empowered. During COVID and Black Lives Matter, what I noticed was who spoke up and who was afraid to speak up. And what happens is that I don't want anyone to ever be in a position where they are passionate about something, when something really means something to them, but they're afraid of speaking up for fear of losing clients. So I am very passionate about race and gender equality and equity. And so I am very outspoken about it. I don't speak up about it on particular days. I don't do it for social media applause. I'm not an Instagram ally. This is something that's been important to me for my entire career. And so I don't sit on fences. I am very vocal about what matters to me. And because I'm financially empowered, I am okay with people saying, Shaa, I don't agree with your views, and therefore I don't want to work with you. And I'm like, okay, if those are your views, I am very happy for you not to be working with me. Because whilst I can respect different political views, you can be a conservative or a Republican, and we can all be happy and get along and work together, no issues. However, there are boundaries. And when those boundaries are overstepped and you cannot understand why it's important for anybody with a platform to speak up when it comes to gender and race equity, then I have an issue with that. And I'll be vocal about it because I am financially empowered. So I do not need to worry if people want to leave my company, my presence, my client base, because I'm speaking up about the things that matter to me. And I really think that women struggle with this more than men in being able to feel confident of speaking up for fear of upsetting other people. And yet what ends up happening is we upset ourselves because we sell ourselves short. We get frustrated with ourselves that we didn't say something in that conversation. When we heard that racist remark or we heard that sexist joke, we didn't speak up because we were worried what would happen to us. You know, would we get the promotion? Would we lose our client? And my view is, fortunately, you know what, guys? Let's get everyone financially empowered so we can all speak our truth, because then things change. Nothing really changes until you're financially empowered.
No, absolutely. Of course, one of the great joys of being in your own business is you can actually choose who you do business with or not. But another part of it, I guess, is you can kind of design the life you want. Now, I get the impression that that was one of the drivers behind your kind of big decision 5 years ago to step back from your business. Just tell us a bit more about what led up to that decision and how it really has changed your life.
Yeah, totally. I was spending, an hour and a half commuting across London, or actually more, probably 2 hours there and back across London each day. I had a young son. Sadly, his father passed away when he was only 3.5. So I was a single mom. I was working really long hours. And for me, the decision wasn't really that difficult. It just took me a long time to get there. And the decision was based on the fact that firstly, I was spending too much time commuting. Secondly, I was spending a lot of my time in the big corporate banks, and that is not me. And thirdly, I felt like I'd lost touch with the reason why I'd set up the business. And I'd set up the business for very similar reasons to why I do the work that I do today, was because I wanted to level the playing field. I wanted to create an equitable source of resources for small businesses, no matter who they were, where they came from, how old they were, how young they were, what their background was. And we'd lost sight of that because, during the last deep recession, that was when we set that business up. And so we had to shift our whole entire business model to change it to be able to survive. And that's fine. But when you come out the other side and you're still doing that work, that wasn't the reason why you set that company up. It made me stop and say, well, actually, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not making me happy. And truthfully, I've proven that I can make money in any industry. So how about I choose something that I really want to do? Let's do that, Shaa. You don't have anything to prove to anyone anymore.
Excellent. So, and now, of course, you are helping lots of people with particularly online businesses. And what would you say, as you look across the whole portfolio of clients you work with and so on, what are the characteristics of what makes a successful online business in the 2020s?
Consistency. It's not a magic pill. It's not magic sauce. It's not a secret ingredient. It's actually something that everyone could have if they chose to. It's consistency. I talk about in my latest book that discipline dominates motivation every single time. Motivation passes like the night. So when the motivation is gone, the discipline has to kick in. And that is what makes it a successful business, online or offline. The discipline to be consistent, to show up for your clients, to carry on with your marketing, to put offers out there, to do the work. And I think the second part of that is really growing into yourself. And that sounds like a very strange thing for an adult to say, but actually really growing into who you are and owning that. So really, the more you own who you are, the more of a magnet you become. And the great thing about a magnet is it will attract all the right clients for you, and it will repel all the wrong clients for you. And by the way, growing into yourself and stepping into, that's not about being divisive. It's not about being polarizing. It's not about being, you don't have to have massively outrageous viewpoints. It's just about truly being you. It's about the conversations that you have in your head and with your best friends and the people closest to you. You can actually show up exactly the same way throughout all of your work.
Okay, so can you give just a couple of examples of people you're working with at the moment who you think have really got this right, and why they're doing so well?
Yeah, absolutely. So one is an awesome client of mine. Her name's Ruth Kudzi. She was a deputy head teacher in Deptford, so in inner London, challenging school, really had a huge amount of responsibility, decided that she didn't want to do that while she had two young kids, made a decision to become a career and leadership coach. She'd done a lot of that work internally through the school. So that's a pretty standard kind of career transition. You'll see a lot of men and women doing things like that. But with Ruth, after a short period of time, she made a decision, oh, hold on a second, this isn't enough. Now I want to grow. Actually, not only do I want to be making, taking and keeping 6 figures a year, but I actually want to grow a 7-figure business. So we've worked together for, I think, probably 2.5 years now. And this month she will have made her first 6-figure month from a coaching business where she is now training coaches. So she's taken people like her who are transitioning from the corporate world and want to go into leadership, career coaching, business coaching, different types of coaching. And she's now got an accredited training school to teach. So she's taken all the skills she had before, but she's utilizing them in a different way.
And just to reiterate, in case people missed that, she's taking a 6-figure sum every month, which is probably a lot more than she was making in a year in her old job.
100%. And I want to be really clear, because I absolutely despise the kind of get rich quick ideas that we see out, especially in the online world. This does not happen overnight, people. I am praising her and highlighting her because she's bloody amazing. I am not for 1 second suggesting that everybody can do this. Firstly, not everybody will have the heart and hustle that she does. Secondly, they won't show up consistently like she does. And thirdly, let's be honest, they might not even want to do that, right? It's about really being true to what do you want? Okay, let's go make that happen. So I give her all the credit. This took her probably 3 years to do, but what a transition in 3 years.
Fantastic. Okay, well, you've already packed an awful lot into your life this far. What's next for Shaa Wasmund? What's the 2020s going to look like for you as you continue to step out of your comfort zone and challenge yourself further?
Well, 2021 has a very big program on the horizon for me. I think I've really grown into myself during COVID and Black Lives Matter and all the challenging things that are happening in the world today. It's made me realize that actually at my core, I'm a creative activist who happens to be really good at business rather than a business person who cares about equity. So it's almost like the reverse. And it's really made me rethink what I'm doing and how I'm showing up for my communities. And what I've realized is that my driving force is to create financial empowerment for all. And that's not just about a sum of money. It is about a state of mind. It's about making sure that no matter where people have come from, that they believe that this is possible for them too. And that they believe that in their bones, not just a wishful thinking, throwaway line in order to get them to sign up to somebody's new program. That they know that it makes no difference what school they went to. They have just as much chance to make this a success, which they do, as long as they are committed and they're passionate and they're willing to be consistent in showing up for themselves and their business. That is what matters most to me, is creating not just personal gain, but generational wealth. Teaching people that the reason I talk about 6 figures so much is because there is so much, there is so much research over the years. What a family unit has to earn in order to create generational wealth. And it's very clear that once a family unit, whether that is, let's face it, in London, that could just be an individual, or it could be, you know, a couple or a couple with kids. But as a unit, when you're actually taking home six figures, not making it because you have all the tax to come off of that, but when you're taking home six figures, you have generated sufficient surplus to be investing into pensions, into ISAs, into maybe buy-to-let properties, maybe into a side business. And that is how you create generational wealth. And I say this because it's so important to me that I know where I came from, which was a generation of families that had only ever lived on council estates. And now, through what I've been able to accumulate through this part of my career so far, I've created generational wealth, not just for myself or my son, but also for his kids to come. And I genuinely don't think that I have some secret sauce or that I am any more special or smarter than anyone else. However, I do believe I have one thing in abundance, and maybe in greater doses than other people have, and yet it is available for everybody. And that is my willingness to take action. I won't talk about something. I will go out and do it. It might not always work. Many times it will fail, but I will get back up and I will go again. I'll get back up and I'll go again, and I will get back up and I will go again. And that is what keeps you driving forward. And that is what takes you from growing up on a council estate to being able to create generational wealth for not just one or two, but probably 3 generations to come. And I don't say that to be arrogant. I say that because I want that for everyone. I want that for everyone who hasn't had that in their own lives, which, let's face it, is most of us.
No, absolutely. Which brings us back to stop talking, start doing. Shaa Wasmund, thanks very much indeed for joining us.